When you think of sumo wrestlers, this is probably what you picture. But in a superhuman anime with a whole bunch of fighters, this is how sumos look in this universe. Sukune the second, the sumo fighter in this universe, Baki universe, that's what I want to talk about today. I mean, as you already can tell by how I started off the video, yeah, his fighting style is basically sumo. Everybody notices it. Throughout this video, you're going to see a lot of superhuman power, just like a lot of characters in this universe. Look how large he looks compared to normal humans. He just looks out of the ordinary. His official weight is apparently 500 something pounds based on this. And he looks pretty tall compared to normal people too. Being 500 and something pounds with this low level body fat is unreal. Let's get into how strong he is, shall we? Just right off gate, when it comes to his physiology, you know the fighter Jack, he's known for biting beings. Yeah, so he literally bit one of Sukune's fingers off. And as strong as Jack's biting strength is, he says it's like biting through building materials. This could let you know about Sukune's physiology, about how durable he is, if Jack says it's like biting through, building materials or whatever. You know how Baki's known for fighting, like, imaginary stuff? Let's just say he can do this too, to practice fighting an imaginary fighter. One could say he could trains like this similar to Baki, but in sumo. Matter of fact, one of his training methods, he is massive, is just literally standing in place in a motionless stance. Part of the reason he could be strong is that the Baki universe kind of teases the idea of ki or energy manipulation in one's body, something that's introduced in Dragon Ball Z. They kind of imply they know this kind of stuff in Baki universe too, but it's one of those things they don't really explain too much, because on occasions like this, they talk about how he will wait until ki fills his limbs. They mentioned ki again. Just a small example of his strength on how the cops literally can't move him and he's literally standing in place. I know he's heavy, guys, but this many men, they can't move 500 pounds. Like, no, this partly is because of his muscle resisting them, obviously. 500 pounds is a lot of weight, but all these men could definitely push 500 pounds. It's because he's not letting them, his muscle. His strength is resisting all these men at the same time. As crazy as this may seem, he looks strong, but he's actually stronger than what he appears. Look how he lifts other sumos above his head with one arm. He's got so much power and control, even when he's about to slam them, he can make it to where they don't actually hit the ground really hard. He can lift up beings like Biscuit Oliver in the air like a baby. He can support and move his own body weight by launching himself in the air with his muscles. So despite him weighing this much, he can leap with his arm, even putting too much power to where he hit the ceiling. He can easily sling his own weight up there. Just in case those that could interpret the scans, it literally talked about how he launched himself in the air. They literally stated the weight 570 something pounds, 579 pounds. And he uses his pinky to grab onto it. They even said he lifted it with a pinky. He can swing around 579 pounds like it's no big deal. To show this is nowhere near his limit when it comes to raw muscle. One of the best ways to understand his muscle, compared to some of the strongest beings in his universe, is how he clashed muscles with this extremely strong being known as Biscuit. Biscuit literally tried to use his superhuman strength to move him, but he couldn't. They even go as far as talking about it's not his weight that's Oliver's issue. It was a mixture of this guy's strength, weight, and skill that wouldn't allow him to be moved by such a powerful being like Biscuit. Friendly reminder that this being Oliver, that he's overpowering like this, exercises, aka meaning this is not his limit. He exercises with helicopters that are actually real life helicopters, by the way. I looked it up online. These can weigh up to 15, even to 30 tons. And if Oliver can lift this kind of weight with his muscle, this ridiculously strong sumo fighter has to be in this weight range. Meaning you could probably put a 20 plus ton helicopter that Oliver was working out with on his back and he would more than likely be able to lift it too. Same thing. And not to mention he can lift way more than this, because when you rep something that's not your max, you know that nobody works out with their max weight. So if he's working out with it, it's probably not Oliver's max. And this guy's overpowering Oliver in muscle. Yeah, he can lift up cars and helicopters. We're just getting started and we already know he can lift over 20 tons. There's like this tradition when it comes to diamonds. You could say this is what makes these kind of sumo beings dangerous. They can literally squeeze with enough raw power to crush coal and make them diamonds. Something that shouldn't be possible for a human to do with their bare hands. But he begs to differ. There's like a few illustrations of his squeezing power. Like there was this sandbag, the ultra size sandbag, 520 pounds. He showed that he has the squeezing power to break this bag open with just the raw grip. That's raw power. It's because of this raw grip strength and technique. When you see him fight other superhuman fighters, he's always got somewhere to grab onto you and make his own grab holes in your own flesh. You remember when Wonder Woman did this? Like making her own grips? This sumo fighter is literally doing this with a human flesh, like making his own dig grips on people's bodies. Yes, this is very painful. He's literally digging through your skin, grabbing your bones. He's holding them by the ribs. It's narrated how Biscuit Oliver's body is protected by the world's firmest muscle mass, reinforced like steel fibers that reach into his skeleton. All this just to become the armor for this delicate zone. And he's digging deep into it. Using his overwhelming pressure of his grip strength, it is said that could turn coal into diamond. Yikes. Then they go on and breaking down coal into diamond. And they talk about how they are the same material. Then it's talked about on how much pressure when it comes to comparing coal to diamonds. It's talked about the number of atmospheres needed to make diamond and coal into the same is actually 100,000. But saying that doesn't make it clear. The space we live in is at 1 atmospheric pressure. It's 100,000 times that. Converted into physical weight, that's 100 tons. This guy can exert the same weight of a dinosaur this large with his freaking grip strength, guys. What the heck do you think his calves, his quads, stuff like that can do? If he can exert 100 tons of pressure. They go as far as say if you apply that kind of pressure, you can make coal into diamond. This show is well aware of the superhuman characters because they say, why don't you try gripping with 100 tons? They said, well, that's not possible. Gripping with that kind of force is ridiculous. Humans can't do that, they say. They say in human history, there has been 2 that have existed. People wielding of the grip strength to make coal transform into diamond. And one of them is in this video. That's why he can grip your bones through your freaking skin. Like, how he's always able to grab people's bones, even if they're meaty, beefy people like sumos as well that have a lot of meat on their bones. He's always got something to grab, even if they have muscle protecting their bone. Matter of fact, he was in this fight with this powerful being known as Jack, for example. I want to keep something noted that he was definitely nerfed. He lost his finger. He tried to do this with Jack. This is one of the matches he did technically lose after a high difficult fight. Even Jack admitted, when it comes to Sukune, that if he would have went for this technique at the beginning, if he would have did that at the start, that would have been it. There's some cases he definitely has the ability to beat Jack based on his opinion here. When you're this strong, you need everything to count. Like if you lose one finger against superhuman fighters like this, it will severely nerf you. Even Oliver admitted when he was like this with less of a finger, he was capped. It was acknowledged without his pinky, he can't grip with the same level of force. After all this 100-ton stuff, I think we got like a bare minimum on what his bare minimum punching power should be. He should be able to at least hit somewhere in his ballpark if his wrist and forearms got this kind of raw muscle. Military vehicles like 60-ton tanks, he should be able to punch and send flying based on all this stuff I've already showed. He can hit with over 100 tons of force, blah, blah, blah. If you think I'm one of them people that's crazy and think, oh no, he can't punch this hard just because his grip's this crazy. Well, sumos do throw kicks, by the way. It's even talked about. Like, yeah, they pound their opponents from the mount. If you watch enough Baki, earthquaking is like a normal thing in this universe. He's constantly making earthquakes with just his strikes, just by stomping. It's pretty freaking consistent. Him just stomping, people literally feel it, the whole building shaking. In this particular occasion, Jack felt that. Based on all this already, I'm pretty sure if he directly hit a building, I think you would agree too, that he could definitely level a building with his punches, obviously. He even made larger earthquakes. Even on this occasion with Biscuit, we see him strike and stomp and make an earthquake on the building. Like he literally shook the entire building with his heavy stomps. You got to look at his performance against the strongest being in the United States of this universe, freaking Biscuit. Biscuit punched this being and he can withstand his hits and collide with Biscuit to the point where it even messed up Biscuit's hand. Now, both these characters have got wins on each other, so it's really up in the air on who you think is actually the better fighter, who can hit the hardest when it comes to puncher power. I think we all can agree he has the advantage when it comes to raw muscle in his forearms, but punching power, I guess you could argue it's up for debate when it comes to Biscuit and sumo. Regardless of what you think he is, this is important to really understanding his true might. When you realize that Biscuit, this guy that he's handling like this, has legit gotten a full-blown slugfest with Baki, the main character who's like considered like a god tier of this verse, and he didn't get one-shotted. Baki did win eventually, but Biscuit held his ground. Why am I bringing this up? Well, because you got to look at how hard Baki can punch to kind of get an idea of what these true potentials of some of these lower people that are lower than Baki can do. Like, yeah, I know this is wonky work with me here, but Baki can make imaginary beings, like imaginary Yujiro. I don't know how this is possible, but yeah, I guess this is a Baki feat. Baki created an illusion that was able to make a freaking earthquake in the vicinity where other beings all around this epicenter could feel the impact of the punches. The main character Baki can produce this kind of energy, and we've seen Biscuit do decent against Baki, even though Baki won. What is he, maybe 1/4, 1/2 Baki, 25% Baki? It's up to you. It's really no math to it, but just for the fact that Biscuit can do this to the main character when it comes to how hard he can hit, and Sukune was able to do this to Biscuit's fist, I would say this concretely proved that Sukune can make earthquakes too, like around the whole block like that, similar to Baki. Even though I'm not saying he can punch as hard as Baki or he's on the same tier with Baki, I'm just saying he should be able to do some type of earthquake similarly, even if he's below him. I mean, I know you all probably think Biscuit is old news, but he's still one of the strongest beings in this verse. He's got to be at least in the top 15. This sumo being, he can hit hard enough to make his own earthquakes this large. We already seen him make his own earthquakes consistently through this video. Earthquake this large wouldn't be that much of a difference, really. He did straight up embarrass Biscuit here. So he has to be able to do somewhere similar to Biscuit's punching power. You know, of course, I'm not talking about like comparing him to Baki with Demon Back and stuff, but like, look, Biscuit ate this to the face. So I think this should be impressive. Yeah, this sumo's a beast. Now, when it comes to the god tier of the verse, the strongest creature in this world, now, I guess you can kind of gauge his power based on this. Obviously, he's not on this guy's level, but we kind of got to see what would happen if he got in a fist fight, kind of sort of with the strongest creature in the world. And he got damaged, of course, and it shows his durability. He caught himself from falling. In a weird way, he kind of earned the strongest creature in the world's respect. They keep on referencing on how he's still standing, he's still on his feet, yet he did not fall. Okay, so like Baki characters have been compared to nuclear weaponry before, guys. Okay, Yujiro's been compared to literal nuclear bombs, like calling him the walking nuclear bomb. You're probably thinking, oh, this is just an exaggeration. I would have thought the same thing too if we didn't see a younger Yujiro, aka weaker Yujiro, shown to have so much punching power to stop a freaking earthquake with a freaking punch. You're probably thinking that's not impressive. Well, it is kind of impressive when you realize in the lore of Baki what kind of earthquake this was. It was based on something that actually happened in real life. I'm talking about actual earthquakes you can Google yourself. Like he apparently was able to stop something, a similar earthquake to what has happened in real life, a magnitude 6 or higher type earthquake. No, seriously, you can Google this yourself. If you do the math correctly, this earthquake that actually happened in real life is actually a 7.3 earthquake, guys. Guys, to put this in understandable terms, a 7.3 earthquake is equal to 1,000,000 tons, guys. I know this crazy, like these fighters can punch with this kind of force in this universe. You guys know how 1 megaton equals 1,000,000 tons? You notice how 1 megaton is equal to certain level nuclear bombs? And you notice how they state stuff like that about certain characters having the punching power of nuclear bombs? You see how it's not like an exaggeration when you have the feats and the statement talking about their comparable to nuclear weapons. They're not necessarily the strongest nuclear weapons, but still nuclear weapons nonetheless. If the god tiers like Baki and Yujiro can punch with 1,000,000 tons, let's just say these two are the only ones that can punch with this amount of force. If we made a grid and we assumed he was lower, of course, like he would have to be somewhere in the range, even though he's lower than these guys, even if we said, oh, he's 25% of this. Like, even if you wanted to say Yujiro's obviously above this guy, so we can't assume he can punch as hard as Yujiro, but let's just say Yujiro can punch with 1,000,000 tons. If we assume this guy's 25% his strength, he would be able to still punch with 300,000 tons of force. Even if we assumed he was like, I don't know, 50% of Baki's punching power or something, I don't know. That would still be 630,000 tons of force, the force of certain smaller nuclear bombs. You know, so you see how no matter how you slice it, even if he's quite a bit below Yujiro, he's got to be a percentage. Like even if we wanted to lowball him really bad and say he was 1% Baki Yujiro, 1%, which we know he probably ain't. That's not even fair. But like let's disrespect him real quick. 1% would still be 12,000 tons of force, y'all. There's no way he's 1% though. He literally got punched in the face by Yujiro, almost fell, but stayed standing and caught himself. I repeat, he's not as strong as Yujiro's punching power, but if he's a percentage of this would still be ridiculous. The higher end fighters in this Baki universe could probably hit hard enough to quake certain size smaller mountains or something. You know, I think if they can punch with 1,000,000 tons of force, I would say him being able to punch with 600,000 tons of force seems fair. I just can't see him being less than 1% of their punching power to assume he's even lesser than this. It just doesn't, it wouldn't seem right. It would be weird if Sukune can only punch with, 200 tons of force and everybody else can punch with 1,000,000 tons of force. Like, I just don't see the gap being that large. You see? Yeah, he loves women too. You could argue part of the reason why he can hit hard is because he's actually faster than what he looks. He can compete in raw speed to some degree with the top tiers. He can react to them to some degree. Like, literally, he looks like a blur here. Notice how when he takes off, you see the ground rise up. There's legit fighters in this universe that can punch at speeds of Mach 78. His combat speed doesn't seem to be that bad compared to the top tiers, so I don't see no reason why he wouldn't be able to move, throw his fist at these kind of speeds, react to this kind of stuff, 78 times faster than the speed of sound. I'm not saying he's as fast as Yujiro, but the god tiers can react to literal lightning, so, I mean, lightning is kind of 220 times faster than the speed of sound, so maybe Sukune's half the speed if we want to lowball him, being 100 times faster than the speed of sound, I'm trying to be lenient here. I'm not trying to compare him to Yujiro too much because he's the god tier, but he's not slow in this universe. You know what I mean? Bare minimum 78 times speed of sound, possibly over 100 times speed of sound, when it comes to his fighting speed. Like, I don't want to overhype him or nothing because he did lose to like another god tier like Baki. So I'm not trying to say he's exactly equal, but maybe like a percentage of them, you know? But what do you guys think? Do you like my estimations on how his punching power should be compared to the god tiers? There's so many top tiers that hit with nuclear force that even if he's lower than the top tiers, that doesn't necessarily mean he's not a nuclear weapon type punching being. Even if he's lower, even if he's half, even if he's a quarter of these guys' strength, by default, him being a higher end fighter, he should technically be one of the many fighters in this universe that can punch with small nuclear arsenals, like in literally his fist. His grip strength can literally produce 100 tons. So, but what do you guys think? And do me a favor and hit that like button. And thanks for the donations, everybody. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.